Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. When we see that iconic silhouette, the bowler hat, the cane, that funny little waddling walk, we instantly think of laughter, right? We think of the legendary Charlie Chaplin, literally the ultimate comedic genius. But, behind the grease paint and all those hilarious physical gags, there lies a deeply sincere and honestly kind of melancholic story. Today, we're not just looking at a movie star. We're exploring the life of a true, resilient survivor, a man who took the profound, agonizing tragedy of his childhood and meticulously transformed it into a universal symbol of hope and endurance.
It's a pretty staggering question, isn't it? How exactly does a boy born into the grim, soot-stained shadows of 1889 London rise from absolute destitution to become, the most famous and beloved man on the face of the earth? To really understand the artist, we have to understand the crucible that forged him. It's an incredible journey from the lowest depths of poverty to unimaginable global heights. And, as you'll see, it really begins in heartbreak.
Charlie's early life was painted with some incredibly deep shadows. His father, who was an alcoholic music hall performer, essentially abandoned the family and died when he was just 37 years old. And his beloved mother, Hannah, who was the one who first taught him all about the stage, she suffered from severe mental illness, which was only worsened by malnutrition and was ultimately sent away to the Cane Hill Asylum. So this left young Charlie and his devoted older brother Sidney completely on their own. They were literally living out on the freezing streets of London, entirely responsible for finding their next meal and a roof over their heads.
And when they couldn't survive on those streets, they were forced into the workhouse. Essentially, this was a state-run institution for kids whose parents were dead, institutionalized, or imprisoned. And real quick, just as we delve into these historical details, I want to note that this video is for educational purposes and created under fair use principles. Anyway, for Chaplin, the workhouse wasn't just a place of poverty. He remembered it as a place of profound, forlorn humiliation. It was a bleak, miserable existence that absolutely no child should ever have to endure.
This early destitution forced a really harsh lesson on Chaplin. He realized early on that despite whatever society promises or pretends it's going to do, you are entirely on your own. To survive a world that had seemingly just discarded him, young Charlie had to build this massive psychological wall around himself. He kept to himself, letting very few people in intimately, and he forged a hardened self-reliance that would absolutely define his entire career.
Section 1. Refuge on the stage. So while the real world was chaotic and cruel, the stage became his sanctuary, and his ascent, it was incredibly rapid. In 1908, through his brother Sidney's connections, a teenage Chaplin secured a trial with Fred Karno's prestigious comedy company over in London. Fast forward to 1910, and that same company took him across the Atlantic for his first American vaudeville tour. And let me tell you, America absolutely loved him. This dynamic rise caught the attention of early motion picture producers, eventually leading him to sign a contract with Max Sennett's Keystone Studios in late 1913. By 1914, he would debut a character that would literally change the world forever.
But, success wasn't guaranteed right off the bat. Initially, comedy producer Fred Karno deeply doubted him. He actually described Charlie as a pale, puny, sullen-looking youngster. But Chaplin quickly proved him wrong. He absolutely thrived in the Karno company, mastering silent pantomime, breathtaking physical acrobatics, and just incredible precision timing. He was even working alongside performers like his roommate, Stan Laurel. The stage really became his masterclass.
Section 2. Keystone and the Chaos.
Stepping into the world of film, however, was a completely different beast. When Chaplin arrived at Keystone Studios, he was stepping into this massive clash of cultures. See, he had been carefully trained in English pantomime, which was slow, deeply character-driven, and meticulously rehearsed. But Keystone's style of American silent drama, it was crude, high-speed, and relied heavily on rough-and-tumble slapstick violence and improvised chases. At first, Chaplin was super frustrated. He felt their films were just a crude melange of rough and rumble, and he was constantly clashing with directors who simply didn't understand his careful pacing.
But, amazingly, out of all that chaos came a miracle of cinematic history. It was a rainy day on the set of a film called Mabel's Strange Predicament. The producer, Max Sennett, needed some gags, so he casually tells Chaplin to just go put on a comedy mask and, figure something out. Chaplin walked into the wardrobe room without a single idea in his head, literally about to piece together a global icon.
Chaplin actually recalled this moment vividly later on.
He said, "I wanted everything to be a contradiction." He grabbed these super baggy pants, a really tight coat, a small bowler hat, and these massive shoes that he actually wore on the wrong feet. Then he added a small mustache just to look a bit older without hiding his facial expressions. He later mentioned that the moment he put those clothes on, the character came fully alive. Before he even walked out onto the stage, the Tramp was fully born.
So where did this character actually come from? Well, the truth is deeply touching. His iconic costume and that waddling walk were heavily inspired by observing genuine hardship during his impoverished youth. He imitated a crippled rheumatic Lambeth street worker named Rummy Binks, who used to hold cab horses for pennies. He also drew inspiration from childhood comic strips like Weary Willie and Tired Tim. Chaplin's absolute genius was taking the tragic, broken figures of his childhood and turning their genuine everyday hardship into brilliant, universally understood comedy.
Section 3. The Philosophical Armor.
Now, the Tramp wasn't just some slapstick clown throwing pies. He served as this profound philosophical armor. He represents the everyday marginalized person fighting back. The Tramp constantly defies authority figures in the police. He shows this endless, unbreakable resilience against crushing poverty. He uses sharp ingenuity to outwit a deeply flawed, unfair system. And above all, no matter how dirty or poor he appears, he maintains an unshakable, gentlemanly dignity. He just brushes the dust off his ragged coat and politely tips his hat.
Audiences connected so deeply with this resilience. Chaplin once described his creation perfectly, saying, "No matter how down on his ass he is, no matter how well the jackals succeed in tearing him apart, he's still a man of dignity." The Tramp served as Chaplin's ultimate shield. It was this dignified, heroic spirit that finally allowed the traumatized, destitute boy from the London slums to conquer a deeply hostile world.
Even the founder of psychoanalysis noticed this dynamic. Sigmund Freud observed that Chaplin's on-screen heroics were essentially a way of continuously rescuing the vulnerable, destitute child he once was. Through the Tramp, Chaplin could save the orphans, protect the marginalized women who reminded him of his mother, and defeat the oppressive forces that had once institutionalized him. He took his immense pain and completely turned it into his power.
So we're left with this really poignant question to ponder. Is the world's most famous comedic character actually its most profound survivor of tragedy? Charlie Chaplin's transformation from a starving workhouse orphan to an immortal artist is just an incredible testament to the invincible human spirit. His laughter was his armor, and he generously shared it with the whole world. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Please do not forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel Famous Lives Bio. I'll see you next time.